As somebody who was very observant while ago said, what was on the screen when you came in tonight, what's on there now, isn't the logo for our current series in Nehemiah. And so a great question was asked. When we're done with Nehemiah, we're starting a new series. And the answer to that, both of those things, is no. We're not done, but we're not doing Nehemiah tonight. We're taking a little bit of a diversion, and we're going to talk about something else tonight. So one of the things, and you probably at least saw this maybe in a social media post, or maybe heard a news story about it on a local news channel or national news. But in the month of June, just a few weeks ago, the Southern Baptist Convention took place, and that is basically in the realm of the Southern Baptists, and that's their annual meeting. And so every year they meet. It's a big thing, big convention, and they met down in Orlando, Florida. We do that so we can go to Disney and Universal. I would. I didn't go, but I watched it online. And you may or may not have heard there was some controversy with it, news stories and such. And so as a result of that, I have gotten a number of questions about that. And not just questions, some comments that I'm not even going to repeat to y'all. So I thought that it'd be good for us, that we just kind of talk a little bit about not just what happened at the convention, but talk about what it is to be Southern Baptist. And we'll address some of that as well. But because here's the truth, I don't know if you realize this or not. I know a lot of you, you're longtime members of Thelma Baptist Church, and some of you have been here all your life or close to it, born and raised here, or maybe some of you came to Thelma Baptist Church by transfer of letter. You just came from another Southern Baptist church, eased right into here, and it's a lot of same kinds of things. But we have a really high percentage of people who come to our church, join our church, that are from other denominations, other faiths. And so we have some other denominations. We have some that are non-denomination, which I think pretty much has become a denomination now. So we have a pretty high percentage of people who come in to be part of our church, and I frequently get questions about, well, how did the Baptists do this? Or a lot of times I get, why do the Baptists do this? Because we didn't do this at our last church or whatever. So I just thought tonight would be a really good occasion to take a break, give you a break from Nehemiah and building that wall and dealing with Sanballat and Tobiah. Let's just talk about that. And maybe you have questions that you need to ask or comments you want to make. Just remember, we're on television. Let's just talk about that a little bit. And so I guess the first thing I'll do is I want you to think about this question. Who are Southern Baptists, right? How many of you have always been a Southern Baptist in your life? You were raised that way? All right. Here's a good question for you. Why are you Southern Baptist? I have a good answer for this. Tell me why you're Southern Baptist.
My parents and my grandparents were all part of Antioch Baptist Church.
Right.
So that's where I got introduced.
Okay. Chris says his parents, his grandparents, he took him to a Southern Baptist church. How many of you have that testimony? I do. You know why I'm Southern Baptist? Because that's how my mama raised me. And so there was at no point that I said, I think I'll go to that church. Because my parents took me to church. And it's just what I became accustomed to. And I'm not saying I wouldn't choose it now. I'm just saying that's how it started. And, once you're a Baptist, you already learn really quickly that we don't like change. So you just keep on doing the same thing. Right? So I noticed that there weren't too many hands that were raised up that said you were born and raised and have always been Southern Baptist. So some of you folks that are from a different faith background. Tell me what's in your background.
I was raised Presbyterian.
All right, Presbyterian,
Yeah.
Pentecostal.
Pentecostal. Wow.
Nazarene.
I'm sorry?
Nazarene.
Nazarene. I didn't realize we had so many. That's awesome. What else?
Independent Methodist, which was pretty close to that.
Independent Methodist. All right. What else?
Lutheran and Presbyterian.
All right. Presbyterian. There's a brother there. That's good. Somebody else. Anybody?
Free Will Baptist.
Free will. All right. Wow, you guys, you do have some rich heritage in your faith journey. Anybody else?
Methodist.
All right, Methodist. All right, so we got a few recovering Methodists, and Presbyterians, and one Pentecostal. Yeah. And some free will, and so some things going. And so, you know, and a lot of those things, there's not dramatic differences between some of those things. But then sometimes, depending on what you're talking about, there are some fairly significant differences. You know, one of the things that is part of our growth as a church is we do see more and more people coming, not just from other Baptist churches. And so we're a Southern Baptist church, and so I just want to kind of talk about that a little bit. And a lot of times what I learned is, this happened with me, right? I told you I was born and raised Southern Baptist, but really all that means is I wasn't, you know, schooled in all things Southern Baptist. I just went to church at a Baptist church, and that was hey, there's Anthony. Okay. You know. So, and I guess the reason I'm telling you that is because there are a whole lot of people who've been going to a Baptist church all their lives, but don't fully know all the things that Baptists believe. And the reason I know that is because I figured out there were a lot of things I didn't know when I went to seminary. Because one of the things that going to seminary that helped me with, Mike, was help me become a better Southern Baptist. There are things that I just never knew. It's like, I'd already been in a Southern Baptist church for 30-something years when I went to seminary, and then I got in there and I was like, wait, we believe that? Okay, I didn't know we did that. Or that we did that back in our history. Especially when you start studying the history of the Southern Baptist Convention, because it was formed in 1845. So it goes all the way back to Civil War era and those kinds of things, and slavery and all those things. So let me tell you a little bit about Southern Baptist. All right. First of all, and this information I'm telling you right now, you can go to sbc.net, which is the Southern Baptist Convention website, and you can see all these things yourself. So you don't have to take my word for it. Southern Baptist Convention they describe themselves as a fellowship. It says this: the Southern Baptist Convention is a fellowship of nearly 47,000 Baptist churches scattered across the United States and its territories. These congregations, comprised of numerous racial, ethnic, language, and socioeconomic people groups, are called cooperating churches. They have organized themselves to accomplish a specific set of missions and ministry initiatives, all for the purpose of proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ to all people everywhere. Right? That is right off their website. That is how the entity describes itself. Right? So there are two words or phrases that I think stand out in their identifying themselves. First of all, you've probably always heard the Southern Baptist Convention referred to as a denomination. All right? And we put them up there on the shelf of 31 flavors. We've got the denomination of Southern Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, and all those things. The truth is that Southern Baptist Convention is not a denomination. It is just what they describe. It is a fellowship of cooperating churches, right? And I'll tell you shortly why that's significant. You might be wondering right now, well, what's the difference between a denomination and a cooperative fellowship? Well, The difference is that denominations, generally speaking, and some of the ones that you say that you have in your backgrounds, their denominations are governing bodies. In other words, they assign pastors to go to certain churches, tell them when to go there and tell them when to leave, to reassign somebody else. And they have guidelines that, that churches have to follow, and they get given instruction to do that. What happened not too terribly long ago with United Methodist, whenever they split up, and now they got Global Methodist and United Methodist. Some of those Methodist churches that left United Methodist, they got into a little problem because the United Methodists owned their building, their property. And so the Southern Baptist Convention, being a cooperative fellowship of churches, or a fellowship of cooperative churches, it means that there is no governance in there. So what that means is there's nobody anywhere telling a Southern Baptist church what to do. We operate with complete autonomy, and that's not just our church, that's all Southern Baptist churches. So, that's kind of the way that goes. And one of the things that, the recent controversy with the Southern Baptist Convention when, they talked about women being pastors or not being able to be pastors, and that was everywhere. They announced it on news stations and all kinds of stuff. And one of the statements that kept showing up that I kept seeing that is kind of fallacious is that, and this was WSFA used the phrase in their headline, Southern Baptist Convention bans women pastors. Well, that's not possible. They can't ban anything. So they decided as a collective that this is what they believe. They don't believe that Scripture allows for women pastors, but they can't ban anything. They can't tell anybody what to do. So it's a voluntary, cooperative effort. So if a church is a Southern Baptist church, they ask to be part of it, and they voluntarily cooperate as a church. So, our property, we as a congregation own the property, everything about it. Whatever we do with our church, when we build another building, whatever, we don't have to answer to anybody about that. You guys are the ones responsible for kicking me out. They're never going to tell me to leave. So don't be in a rush if you don't mind to do that. I think we're good right now. But that's kind of the essence of who we are. So it's a fellowship, not a denomination. And so that's kind of the way it is. And the fellowship is based on cooperation, right? So when somebody says the word cooperation, what does that mean?
Working together.
All right, we work together, right? Any other thoughts on that? Okay. Whenever people are cooperating, what that means is they find common ground and they agree on it, and they develop. They direct energy toward the same causes and the same philosophies, same beliefs, and so it's just a matter of agreement. It's agreement in what you believe. It's agreement in what you do. You pool resources and all those things. And so, in the Southern Baptist Convention now, there is 46,876 churches, right? So that's a few Southern Baptist churches. So it is a pretty big mainstream faith. It's hard when you decide not to use the word denomination, what to call it now. But that's what it is. So just less than 47,000 churches, and in those churches there's a total membership as of today of 12,722,266. So it is a big mainstream faith, and so that's why whenever they do get together for an annual meeting and they have, anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 people usually show up to those things. That's why they make the news because it is such a big mainstream body of cooperating churches. And so whenever they make decisions or whatever, it's usually some big impact there, right? Weekly worship attendance at SBC right now is around 4.3 million. So that's pretty significant. Weekly small group Bible study attendance in SBC is 2.5 million. Total baptisms reported 250,000. There are 41 cooperating state conventions, which tells you since we have 50 states, that not all states have a whole lot of Baptist representation, and there are some state conventions that disagree with Southern Baptist and develop their own Baptist convention, doing their own thing. So, and then there are a little over 1,000 cooperating local associations. So there you go. We have 3,500 overseas missionaries and about 3,300 domestic missionaries right now. They're full-time, living off of funding that isn't Southern Baptist. All right? So that's kind of, well, just kind of a snapshot of who we are. So what's good? All right? You talked about a while ago why you're Southern Baptist if you are. What would be good about being part of the cooperative fellowship that is Southern Baptist Convention? What do they do that's good?
Missions.
All right, tell me about their missions efforts, Chris.
Well, the missions here in the United States.
Okay.
Be in the cities, or it can be in the rural. I've heard of missions out in, in the Native Americans, and just things like that. And you also have the international, just like we got Guatemala missions, and we got stuff over in Europe and China and just everywhere. So
All right.
there's always a focus on reaching others besides just right here.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, the Baptist Last Relief,
All right,
which is
Yeah.
huge.
that is huge. And it makes a big statement, because when you watch the news where something bad just happened, earthquake, hurricane, tornado, whatever, you see those yellow caps pretty quick. The disaster relief teams that wear the bright yellow vests and hats and stuff like that, you see them on the scene pretty quick after something bad happens. Right?
Pooling the resources allows you to reach and do different things that a single local church would not be able to accomplish by themselves,
Yeah.
and further the mission of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, you're right, 100% right. In fact, one of the things, if I were a Southern Baptist, what would make me strongly consider and probably decide to be a Southern Baptist is, yeah, I do agree with their doctrinal stance, their theological stance, but one of the biggest things for me is I haven't seen any other brand of Christianity do this better. Their missions efforts are amazing. And you probably, if you ever looked at our budget, you've probably seen a line item in there for the cooperative program. The cooperative program is a distinctly Southern Baptist thing, and it's really, it boils down to cooperating churches pooling resources. And so to be a cooperating Southern Baptist church, you do agree to give a percentage, but it's your decision what percentage that is of your budget, and pool that with all the other churches, 47,000 churches in the convention, and it funds international missionaries, it funds North American missionaries, it funds people like me and Mike back there. We benefit from it because it helps make seminary training more affordable for us as we educate ourselves and get ready for leading in ministry. It does a lot of things. It helps to fund colleges, seminaries, and those kinds of things. And, you know, it's really good. And so I hadn't seen anybody that does it better. Go ahead, Evan.
Known some people that go off through the Southern Baptists as missionaries, and they get to concentrate a lot on going and serving. I have a brother-in-law that's in another denomination,
Mhm.
and he does real well, but he still has to spend half his time raising money.
Mhm.
The church helps him out a little bit, and gives it back, but basically, he has to year round spend time raising money. And it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a perfect system, and it's not a turnkey thing where if you're a Southern Baptist missionary, everything's taken care of. There is an amount of fundraising that goes along with it. But those dollars do a lot, and obviously because we're combining resources, that means there's a whole lot more to work with and to accomplish more. So it helps with planting churches, it helps with local and area ministries, you know, those kinds of things. And so it's a pretty good, I guess, thing that stands out to me by comparison to a lot of the other denominations that are out there. All right? And so that's pretty strong. Now, everything we do with that, like I told you, we decide what percentage of our budget we send, and it's not a bill we have to pay, it's not an obligation. It's something we volunteer to do because we believe in that cooperative effort. So everything you get, every time you give to the church, there's a little piece of that goes and helps, well, a lot of people in a lot of places to hear the gospel and to be able to carry out the ministry that they have. All right? Let me pause here to see if you guys have any questions about the organization itself and how it works and our affiliation.
I do have a question. What about the literature that is taught within the classes and other things? Does that collectively come from or originated, or do we gather our own information? How does that come through?
Well, the denomination itself doesn't supply that or doesn't, I guess, Lifeway, which a long time ago used to be the Baptist bookstore, back when I started out, it is affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention, but it is a for-profit thing. In other words, they don't get funding from cooperative program or anything like that. But so it is a bookstore. It is a for-profit business, but it specializes in study material that is consistent with Southern Baptist theology and doctrine. Not all the time. I have run across some things that we're not. But good bit of it. So
What about the Bible school stuff? Because
same thing, Lifeway.
Same way through Lifeway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a product that we buy from Lifeway, but it has Southern Baptist influence in it for the most part. So, all right. Other questions? That was good.
As far as literature, used to, everybody got the little the little book. Now, so was that Southern Baptist, or was that just something, because that's, the only thing we all did,
Yeah. Well, that came through that same retail outlet part of the convention at the time. Now people have moved away from. It's still available. You can still buy that kind of literature, and some of our groups do still use that. Yeah. Not everybody, but some. But things have changed a lot since I started in the Southern Baptist Convention. It used to be everybody bought all their stuff from the same place. Everybody used the same literature. You had what we call a quarterly, a piece of literature that people got every quarter. So if you were a Sunday school teacher, every quarter the boxes came in, you got your new teacher book, and everybody taught the same thing, whether you went to this class or that class. Everybody had the same lesson the whole time. And of course, that was back in the time where we thought the last inspirational lesson had been written by a Baptist, and the last inspirational song had been written in the hymnal. So we didn't venture too far away from either of those things. And that's not me poking fun, that's just the truth. That's the way we operated back then. We kind of stayed in that fenced-in area. So now, there are a lot of things that people do, and of course, if you go to any of our groups, people teach various kinds of literature. So, all right, other questions, anything?
The last thing I got is, because we're a co-op, and it's fantastic that we govern ourselves and that we can do those things, it feels very much more democratic, I guess, in that way. Is there a process, though, that if one of the bodies that is a part of the SBC starts doing or altering what they're doing with the doctrine, things that are excommunicated out of the SBC?
Well, yes. Now, excommunication is strong. I don't know that with that terminology would, what they would call it would be, well, we're cooperating churches, but if you step outside of what the core values are of the Southern Baptist Convention, you would be considered to be a non-cooperating church.
Fair enough.
Aren't
So-
they like disfellowshipped or something?
Yeah,
like
it's
that?
kind of a withdrawal of fellowship. And this whole pastors and women thing, they've been talking about it for 3 or 4 years now. And so just a couple of years ago, there were some churches that were withdrawn from the fellowship and not part of the cooperative anymore. But, and that's, yeah. So there is that potential. I mean, there are certain things, but it's not compulsory. It is, you decide, this is where our values line up, this is where our theology and doctrine line up, this is what we believe we want to support, and then you choose to do that. But it is expected when you choose to do that, that you'll hold to that when you do it.
Well, we have bylaws in place here that I think pretty much fall in line with the same
Yeah,
doctrine and stuff that Southern Baptists have in place.
that's true. If you read through our bylaws and look at our doctrines and our theological positions as a church, they line up really well with Southern Baptist Convention's Baptist faith and message. So, all right. That seems like a good place to, I don't know, transition to talking about the Baptist faith and message. How many of you ever read this? Anybody? Well, sure you have. All right, just a couple. Well, this may be something you want to, add to your collection of books. Honestly, I was a grown man and following Christ before I ever read this book, even though I'd been in a Baptist church a good bit of my life. And it is really good. And just to give you an idea, and anybody can get one of these, it's not like a secret handbook that they give preachers. So, you know,
You have to know the handshake.
that's right, it's sort of thing.
That's actually on the website as well, on SBC.net.
Yeah, you can read the Baptist Faith and Message on SBC.net as well. I was actually, oh, there it is. I thought I couldn't find the table of contents from it there. But I'm just going to say that it is, from beginning to end, it is Southern Baptist belief about scriptures, about God the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, about man, his sinfulness, salvation, and how it happens, God's purpose of grace, the church, baptism, and Lord's Supper. So there's a pretty big list of things, 21 chapters worth in here. And they're short and easy reads. If you say, well, I want to know what I've signed up for here, and kind of where we fall, so that when I'm thinking about, well, okay, I am. If I wasn't born and raised as a Southern Baptist, I'm at least going to a Southern Baptist church now, and it could be handy for you to read that. One of the things that that I was going to read to you out of here. And this is relevant to the recent controversy about women and being pastors or not being able to be pastors. When they were doing all the news stories about it in the last few weeks and talking about Baptists made a decision to ban women, that's not new. That is not a new belief. That has always been the case in Southern Baptist Convention. That we believe that God has limited the role of pastors and elders in churches to men in leadership. And So, and why I was going to read this to you is because this is the 2000 edition. It's the most recent edition of this Baptist Faith and Message, but it's so I mean, it's still 26 years old. And as it relates to that particular issue, here's what it says. It says, "We also affirm that the office of pastor is limited to men as qualified by Scripture." And then it goes on to say, it says, "The Bible clearly reveals a complementary relationship between men and women. Both are equally created in the image of God. Both are gifted for service in the church. But the New Testament defines a pastor as a man who is the husband of one wife and a man who is gifted by God to fulfill the pastoral role. God's instruction for men to assume and fulfill the preaching ministry is for men to assume and fulfill the preaching ministry." So, and I'm not saying that to make a point or to spike the ball and win an argument. I'm saying that to say all the hyperbole that you heard in all the reporting, both in social media posts and news stations, those things are acting like all this stuff just finally came up and whatever, but it's not. It's in fact, this belief about pastors as far as having the biblical authority to take leadership in the church and to preach and teach and disseminate the word, that goes all the way back to the very beginning for Southern Baptists. And so they didn't just go down to Orlando and go, you know, we've had a good time down here, let's do this. So it's not a new thing. So I don't know if that helps you. And I'm not trying to get into the whole issue of women in ministry and those kinds of things. But I also wanted to read that so that you understand that the official position of Southern Baptist Convention is that men are the ones that God's chosen to be elders, overseers, senior pastors. But it also, and this is what irritates me about Southern Baptist in what they did a few weeks ago, is this emphasizes the importance of women's ministries and what they do and what they bring to the table. And for some reason, they kind of left all that out in making their point.
So what do you think compelled them to
Yeah,
have a
that's
need
what
to
I'm
do
asking.
that?
Yeah.
Since it's already basically, and always has been, in part of the belief.
Well, let me just tell you, that's Doug season, okay?
I mean, I know there were some churches that have women pastors that were
Yeah.
still part of the fellowship.
Well, it's just like a lot of other things. These are things that have been long-term, long-held beliefs in every Southern Baptist church, generation to generation, for hundreds of years. But just like anything else, as time goes by, as new generations come along, people start to loosen up. Yeah, start to accept things they didn't used to accept, those kinds of things. And so what made them finally get to a place where they felt like they needed to kind of make a final statement, make a constitutional amendment that's really clear, was that they got to a place where, even though that had long been held as a belief, a common belief in Southern Baptist circles, there were still a lot of Southern Baptist churches that were pushing that limit, you know.
Gotcha.
Now, I will say that in that particular issue, there is two ways of thinking about pastoring, right? And what I mean by that is, when I started out in ministry, there wasn't anybody on staff that ever had the label pastor of any kind except for that one head guy. We had a pastor. I was always a minister of music, minister of youth. Any other staff we had, minister or whatever. And the women were always a director or something. We wouldn't even call them minister right now. And that's the way it was forever and then a day ago, you know. Now we have positions where pastors, the church I served in Mobile as a youth pastor there, you know, we were associate pastors, all doing what we did in our ministries. So a lot of things have changed, and that's become more broadly accepted. I think the issue, as I see it, is you've got the word pastor, that is an office, a position of authority in leadership, biblical authority, as the head person in charge of leading a congregation. And then you've got pastor, the word that means shepherd, which is literally what pastor means, shepherd. And so you've got the verb form, people who shepherd, and then you've got the office, which is the position. And I think that there are a lot of people that were using the word pastor just to identify what somebody did, not so much to elevate them to a place of authority, but it still made some folks uncomfortable, and that's kind of where all that came from. So,
Do you think those that have wanted to push for that may want, and they end up being put out of the cooperative, the following, where does that leave them according to the Southern Baptist Convention? Are those being led astray? Or though, I mean, even though they may have the same, doctrine taught, the same word taught, the same everything taught, but it's just got a woman that's in position
well,
of
I think
leading
where it leaves them is they're still doing everything they would do normally, and they're just not a Southern Baptist church anymore. In other words,
I mean, I guess that's kind of where I'm sitting here looking at it, well, they're just out of God's will by doing all that. Is that the case? I mean,
well,
would God lead?
you're gonna put me on the spot like that.
There's something that's been put
This is just
before
to
me.
be informative here tonight. Could you, right here on the internet, in front of everybody in the world, tell them that they're wrong?
I'm just trying to gather, because, you get people that act like they're just, women shouldn't be doing none of it. But I've sat and listened to women present.
You're really
God's
hard
word
over there. Oh my God.
very strongly. Well, I've had to put something before me by somebody that's out of Southern Baptist. And of course, he wanted to call me a Southern Baptist. I said, no, first of all, I'm a Christian. I mean, I might go to Southern Baptist Church, but first of all, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm, looking at. How are we going to save souls? Or are we going to sit there and say, oh, they're out of, they got a woman pastor over there, just saving souls, kind of thing.
Okay.
Anyway, so.
Yeah, let's, this evening has been brought to you tonight by Unity in the Faith. So, I understand what you're saying, and I get that, and I understand why you're saying it, I do. I'll just tell you my take on it. First of all, I do believe that it is God's design that men should be the lead pastor in any church. I think. I believe that. I believe it's consistent with the Scripture. It teaches everything that refers to the position of overseer, elder, pastor in the New Testament. Always refers to a man, all the time. And so there is not a lot of wiggle room for that. However, I will stipulate that, and that's why I drew that distinction between pastor, the work, and pastor, the position. Because if a pastor is a shepherd, that's somebody who shares gospel, teaches the word to people, and gives guidance and does the work of ministry. So what that means is, if somebody came along, and whether they were male or female, and said, hey, would you mind if, I don't know, we got some people together, and would you mind if I shared the gospel with them? Would you mind if I shared some scripture with them? Would you mind if we got together and prayed? Would you mind if we did those things? All the work of shepherding, well, not anybody would go, well, no, you can't do that. That would be stupid. So there are women who do the work of pastoring, as in shepherding, in kids ministry, in youth ministry, in other ministries. There's so much that needs to be done, which is why, for me, I would not spend a lot of time arguing about this. And that's why I don't go to the Southern Baptist Convention anymore. In my early years, I used to go all the time. But all it does is make me mad now. And the reason it makes me mad is because I've been there, and when you go, if you actually go and attend, then there are these incredibly moving worship services where they are commissioning missionaries. This year, they commissioned 63 missionaries to go on the field as foreign missionaries. This year, because I watched it online, and they have all these incredibly positive things that they are reporting on and doing that are all geared toward and celebrating sharing the gospel with people. But what makes the news for us is a stupid controversy that all we did was we just worked on trying to win an argument. And that just annoys me. So if you're listening, stop that. We have something more to do.
Something more important.
That's right. We're here to bring the gospel to people and not argue about matters of, titles and authority and all those things. So,
I guess that's kind of where I'm going with it too.
And yeah, I understood your point.
Let's get away from all that.
Yeah, well, and we are, which is why it's important that we are autonomous. And we're going to do what the Lord leads us to do according to Scripture. We're not going to do anything that gets us in trouble. But you asked about the consequence. Well, what if somebody decides not to do? Well, all of a sudden, the only consequence is nothing. If for whatever reason we weren't Southern Baptist tomorrow, we would do tomorrow exactly what we do now. Because that doesn't define us. It's not what drives us. We're driven by Scripture. We're driven by the gospel, and we're driven by loving God, loving people, and making disciples. And so I like staying focused on those things. And I said, when I first came to this church, I told everybody, I said, Doug, don't fight. We're not arguing. We'll never argue about anything. We're going to stay focused on the work of the gospel. So that's where we are. All right. Are you good now? Are you still going to be a Southern Baptist tomorrow? All right, that's good. And listen, nothing I said was intended to be disparaging toward anybody or critical. I mean that. I've benefited in so many ways from the work of the Southern Baptist Convention and have participated in so many meaningful things because of the Southern Baptist Convention. I just think sometimes, because that's just a big business meeting every year, there's a lot of people who like to go to that microphone and voice their opinions about a lot of stuff that I don't think matters. But that's true everywhere. Give a person a microphone, they can't help but say what they think.